Okay, this past weekend at UFC 287, Israel Adesanya took on Alex Pereira for the middleweight championship, a rematch from their first bout in mixed martial arts. And Israel Adesanya reminded everybody who and what he is by sending Powhatan to the shadow realm and knocking him cold in the second round. Now, coming into this fight, I had a few questions of Adesanya. I questioned his character, whether he would be able, after losing to the same guy 3 times, after him stopping you in mixed martial arts, knocking you out in kickboxing, whether you have the character, whether you have that thing inside of you to come back. And that was purely why I picked Alex Pereira in my prediction, because I kind of felt like, well, that would be a lot. And with Pereira, stylistically, it would be a very hard fight for him. And I just felt like it'd be too big, too long, powerful. He's kind of matches Izzy in the kickboxing, and as we've seen in both fights, these two are very, very evenly matched. But I just felt he would just be, almost a big hill for Izzy to climb. But I'll admit, I didn't think it was ever impossible for Izzy to win this fight, and I felt, and I want to do a separate video on this, but a lot of people like to judge body language and how a fighter acts on fight week. To me, irrelevant. I purely judge the fighter, the stylistic matchup. Occasionally, if there's obvious mental signs, then I may pick on it. But really, to me, fighting is a very, very simple game. You just judge the fighter, their skills, their attributes, and how they match up with another fighter. I don't judge what they've said, how they've been acting. I don't judge how they acted when a guy said something, if they started shivering, whatever. I don't care about that. I care about the fight, and I felt Izzy could get it done, but I thought he had to wrestle on that. But I did not think I thought he could. He hurt Pereira in the first fight, so I thought he could hurt him, stop him, but I didn't think he could knock him cold the way he did. And Israel Adesanya showed myself and a lot of people that this guy has real character. And you say what you want. This guy, I said before, he is one of the greats, but I just didn't know. I felt like that hurdle of having those 3 fights would be too much for him. I felt like it would get into his mind, and that pressure. If you lose to a 4th time, this guy, where do you go? Is it over? But he showed he did not care about any of that, and he showed why he is one of the best and one of the greats of this era. Because most people, you lose 3 times. Like I said, I use the example of a test, and how you keep failing it, and you can do everything perfect, but you're still failing it. And that would be on your mind if you take that test another time. But Izzy showed he didn't care about how hard that test was, what he had to do. He overcame it, and he finally overcame those demons, and he showed what is inside of him. That, skill-wise, he is as good as I thought. There's nothing I learned in this fight about Adesanya's skill. I always said, people call him boring. He's only ever boring when the other guy doesn't come to fight. I think in order to beat Adesanya, you would certainly have to mix it up, but you also have to go for him. Pereira went for him. Blachowicz went for him. Blachowicz, I think it was more of the fear of his power, which is why Adesanya wasn't really as exciting, and also the size was a big thing. But Adesanya, he can finish you. He's an exciting fighter. It just depends on the stylistic matchup. You look at Paulo Costa, a guy who comes to box. You stick him against a guy like that who will try and attack. I know he didn't do much in the fight, Costa, but you see he pieced him up, messed up his leg. You see Robert Whittaker lunging in. You have a guy who lunges in at Adesanya, he will find the shot to finish you, But then when you have Cannonier and you have Vittori, guys who are, and even Whittaker to an extent, but not completely, guys who won't really go for it and don't really have the skills to match. I think if Whittaker was longer, there's a very good chance he could beat Adesanya. And a lot of people still feel he won that second fight. I don't think he did. But there's certainly an argument there, but he's just not long enough, I don't think, to overcome the deficit. But with Adesanya, regardless, his skills, I didn't never doubted him. He can be an exciting fight. So you just have to bring the fight to him, and it's there. The stylistic matchups are there. Probably the middleweight division, there's nobody like Alex Pereira as much, in terms of there's no specialist strikers. This is why I think Adesanya wanted the Darren Till fight so much, so he could show off more of what he can do. But regardless, an incredible finish. Stylistic, I didn't know. I already knew Adesanya skill-wise what he was. But what I wanted to know was what was inside his heart. Mentally was my big concern for Adesanya. Would he, like I said, would he be able to overcome the demons? This right here is a real champion. He didn't care that he lost to this guy 3 times. He didn't even care that he got knocked out, stopped. And he showed tonight that this guy is... not tonight, it was actually last night, or 3 days back. But he showed he's the real deal. And he showed that, like I said, it doesn't matter what you put in front of him. Adesanya is an active champion. He fights so often. When he was a middleweight champion, he had, if you go through it, fought Calvin Gastelum, fought Robert Whittaker, fought Yoel Romero, fought Costa, went up against Jan Blachowicz in weight loss. Then he fought Vettori. He then fought Robert Whittaker, then Cannonier, then Pereira again. He is so active as a champion. And respectfully, when you have guys like Ngannou and Miocic who don't even fight that much, when you have, Konoski's pretty active, so I won't go for him. But then you also look at certain fighters, like Aljamain Sterling took a while out because of his neck surgery. You have guys who take these injuries, and I understand it. I don't blame him for that. But it's refreshing to see a guy like this who fights as often as he does. And to see what he did to Pereira, to put him out cold like that, again, skill-wise, nothing surprised me. It's the heart, the fact that he did not care that he lost to this guy. He was willing to keep going and trying. And they say, you don't succeed, you try and try again. And that's what he does. And that's Adesanya. I give him a lot more. I should have given him more respect than I think was due, because he really went in there and just overcame them demons in a massive way. And again, his skill-wise, it doesn't surprise me. But I've been surprised a few times with Adesanya. The Whittaker fight, I thought maybe he'd get it done, and he did. First time round. Wasn't sure what he was about though, really. The Costa fight came, and I actually thought Costa would win simply because of how aggressive he was and how tentative Adesanya was to fight before. But when he beat Costa the way he did, that's when I knew that this guy was for real. I knew he was for real anyway, but this is when I was really sold on him as a fighter. And he's shown since that he is as good as I think he thinks he is and how people think he is. The problem that you got, like I said, is just stylistically, some of the fights just don't match up well for him. But in this fight, it shows you bring it to him, he has the ability to knock you out. He knows the right moments to pick his shots. The fact that he hurt Pereira in the first fight shows you that, he has the power. And not even the power, just the placement. He knows when's the right shot to throw at the right time. But it was an incredible finish from Adesanya. Pereira in the first round, I felt like ripped up the leg, and it felt like Adesanya kind of just about lost the round, even though you could go either way. It was a close round. But then second round comes, and Pereira's doing the same thing. He's beating the leg up, and they start to get in exchanges. And when that happens, that's where you get nervous for Adesanya with knowing who Pereira is. However, he plays possum, he says, up against the fence, allows Pereira to land a few shots. Pereira needs him, but then Adesanya hits the overhand right, wobbles him, hits him again. He goes down, and then he sort of just grazes him with a left hook. And Pereira is sleeping, and Adesanya is getting the bow and arrow, firing at him. He sees his kid Pereira's kid ringside or octagon side, full stiff, the same way that his son mocked Adesanya all day years ago in kickboxing. People have an issue with that. Fair game, in my opinion. The game is the game. It's a ruthless sport, and it is what it is. And an incredible finish. And like I said, Adesanya's into anime. I think he'll view this as a character arc. His life is like a movie. He is the protagonist in his story, and Pereira's the antagonist. And in his mind, I think he overcame something big. And now I genuinely think his confidence will be massive. When you overcome something like this, what else is there to face him anymore? I don't think he'll be afraid of Chimaev. I feel like he so inadvertently called out Duplessis, talking about carrying him all over South Africa. I don't really see what else is next for him middleweight. Pereira rematch would be good, but he doesn't really want that. He feels that Pereira should kind of work his way back up. And if I'm being honest, although it could seem a bit, not that he's ducking him, but that he kind of is avoiding it, you look at his reasoning, it makes sense. Adesanya did have to go through a lot to get the belt and to keep it. and he earned the right to have that immediate rematch because he was a champion for quite a while. Pereira, this is just his first fight and he lost it. Now, they are doing Amanda Nunes and Juliana Pena, so that doesn't really make sense in that context. But I don't know. I see both sides, to be fair. There isn't really many contenders at middleweight unless you want to do Whittaker again, which, whilst he's deserving, doesn't really make much sense after he's beat him twice. And yeah, I don't really see what else is there for him. I like heavyweight, I would be a good option, but again, maybe he wants to do that. I'm not really sure. But I mean, Jamal Hill and Adesanya would be an interesting fight, to be fair. But I don't really see many options at the moment, so I think he needs to wait until things pan out and then there's a bit more of a clear picture. But like I said, he showed the character. He showed he has the ability to overcome and conquer those demons. And I questioned it. I questioned whether he had that coming into this fight. And he showed everybody why he's one of the greats. And he also, as Roy Jones said, he says, you almost have forgot. And he uses that line a lot. And he showed in that fight against Powhatan, you know, that he's a dangerous guy in there. And he has the character. And that's one thing you can say about Adesanya. You may not like him. Say what you want about him. He is an amazing fighter, one of the greats, and he has heart. Heart. So many people, we talk about someone like, all right, I don't mean to go on because I do like him, but Anthony Joshua, he lost to Andy Ruiz, and now everybody talks about how he's not the same, how that loss almost ruined him. Now he's gun shy, doesn't throw the big shots to the right hand as much, you know, and losses do that to people, you know. Mixed martial arts, look at Tyron Woodley kind of got ruined by Kamaru Usman after the Justin Gaethje fight. Tony Ferguson was never the same. You look at, what would be another one? Maybe, you could look at maybe when Miocic got knocked out by DC is a little bit of a turning point, but he was able to get those fights back. There's just there's a lot of examples where fighters kind of, they get beat, they're not the same. You look at Usman against Edwards now. Admittedly, I think this could be more down to age and injuries, but he got knocked out by Edwards and he wasn't able to really be as dominant in that second fight, even though, you know, Usman was the champion. He was a great, but isn't able to really capture and get that that sort of feel of dominance that he had in the first fight or in the second fight that he had. And I do feel with Adesanya, he's shown, like I said, why he's got to where he is and why he's one of the greats. To do that to a guy like Pereira, not to mention, this guy Pereira is dangerous. Powhatan knocks people cold. He's vicious. He didn't just knock him out, he put him to sleep. Pereira, it took him a while to get up. The fact that he was able to do that, I think, is an incredible feat. For Pereira, I think it's a lesson to him. You don't underestimate your opponent. I don't think you underestimate Adesanya, for the record. I think he knows who Adesanya is, but I felt like the fact that he went in, Adesanya wasn't wobbled when he started landing those shots. He was mildly in some discomfort because of the leg, but wasn't anything big. But in the fight, you saw he rushed in, was throwing left hook, throwing shots, and he left himself wide open. The same thing he did in the first fight, but this time Adesanya made him pay for it. And Adesanya, and you know, this is something also that I notice with fights, whether it's boxing or MMA, in rematches, traditionally, you kind of often have a moment in one of the fights, and that moment almost gets, not accentuated. It becomes a big story of the second fight. So, example, look at Tyson Fury, Deontay Wilder. Fury gets knocked down twice. He outboxes Wilder in the first fight. But when he gets almost knocked out, or does get knocked out, but he goes back up in the 12th round, you saw how, since that, after that moment, Fury just went after Wilder and really pushed him back, and it showed Fury in that fight that Wilder can't fight off the back foot. And people who know Wilder know this, but again, it takes a certain type of fighter to really go at it, and nobody really thought he'd do that in the second fight, considering how the first fight went, but he went after Wilder because he realised, okay, this guy knock you out, but he can't fight off the back foot, he can't box like that. So, and he was in serious discomfort when Fury had him up against the ropes. So Fury took that and ran with it for his second fight. You look at Usman and Edwards, second fight they had. Usman, the story of the fight is Usman dominated Edwards for the whole fight, barring the 5th round when Edwards head kicked him into another dimension. And obviously Edwards also took him down in the first. But most of the fight was the dominance of Usman and the knockout of Edwards. But what was never ever looked at is, watch that fight back. Usman did not take Edwards down with as much joy as you actually think. There was a lot of moments in that fight where Usman was trying to take Edwards down and he stuffed it a lot of times. The reason he got him down was purely, I think, the exhaustion just got to Edwards. So what does Edwards do this time? One, I think he looks at the knees of Usman and he goes for the leg kicks and the body kicks. And the fact that it's in London, he works more on the takedown defense. Usman could not get Edwards down that many times. I think once or twice, 3 times he got him down in the the third fight with how many shots? It was non-existent. I think he realised something there in that second fight, Edwards, and really honed in on it in the third fight. It happens so many times, and there's just so many examples of it. One example you could look at. I was gonna say, it wasn't really looked at as much, but with Kamaru Usman and Colby Covington threw everything at Usman in the first fight and was able to keep a pace with him and went back and forth, and it works really well. But in the second fight, Covington was a bit more relaxed, didn't go for it as much, and he paid the price. He got knocked down. He lost the first round and then got knocked down twice in the second. So those sort of things can, again, some fighters, they realise certain things and they go for it, and some fighters kind of will take one thing from a fight and almost use the bad. They'll do one thing really well, but because they lost, they almost will ditch the whole game plan and go with something else. You see, if Colby had gone for it from round 1, maybe it would have been different, the fight. I just think it's one of those things with fighters where they realise something and they tweak it and they really hold in on it a little bit more, and then eventually you kind of see that they have more success. So my roundabout point with Adesanya is he hurt Pereira in the first fight. He stayed in the pocket with him, and I think he must have realised this guy can be hurt if you just time him, and his striking defense is good, but it's not fantastic. And in the pocket, he's there to be hit. And most guys won't be able to knock him out or do what Adesanya did, but because of Adesanya's striking and his accuracy, he has the ability to do that. And he honed in on it more in this fight. He baited him in and then knocked him out cold. Again, little things like this are what make great fighters. The ability to see what went wrong in the fight and rectify it, and look at also what went right for them in the fight and honing on it more. And that's why Israel Adesanya is one of the greats. People need to respect him. An incredible victory, and my thoughts there on Adesanya's win over Alex Pereira. I am planning to make a separate video on how I do think a lot of this body language stuff in fighting in mixed martial arts is ridiculous, but that will be another thing. But yeah, just my thoughts. Adesanya KOs Pereira, gets the belt back, and yeah, until next time.